Hey Flipside family, this is Brandon, your high school pastor, and welcome to the Flipside Weekly Devotion. I'll be honest, I am really starting to miss you all. After watching the live stream church service this past weekend, I was feeling so sad that we don't even get to have Flipside right now. And in all honesty, it was kind of unexpected for me. I have loved sleeping in on Sundays and going to quote-unquote church in my PJs and eating Cheerios on my couch while watching the live stream service. But it's just not the same as seeing all my Flipside people in the youth center on the weekend. Let me just say, I am counting down the days until we are back together in the youth center, and I'm hoping that happens sooner than later. So I go on walks almost every other day around my neighborhood in downtown Salem, and it's something I've done long before all of this lockdown started. And I live near the church, so it doesn't take me long to get downtown, and I usually listen to music. But the other day, my wireless headphones died in the middle of my walk. I forgot to charge them, and I was stuck in silence. It made me uncomfortable at first. I thought about going back home if I didn't have music with me. But I started to really like it. It was kind of nice. And instead of listening to music or a podcast, I listened to the traffic and the birds and other people's conversations as I walked by, which I recognize is definitely eavesdropping, but I couldn't help it. Those are all things that I drown out with sound usually and completely miss. And even though it took me a bit to get used to, I found myself really enjoying not feeling the silence with sound, but just taking in the world around me for what it was. I don't always like the quiet. I'm the kind of person who likes the TV on in the background just to fill the silence when I'm at home. But in the way of Jesus, quiet is a kind of spiritual discipline in and of itself. And usually, when we talk about this kind of quiet, which is all over the life of Jesus, we usually talk about two parts of quietness: external and internal. External is when you silence all the noise outside of you. You turn off your TV, put your phone away for a bit, you take out your AirPods, maybe you get outside of the house and into nature, and you set your brain before God without the noisy nonsense of the loud world. Jesus did this all the time. In Mark chapter 1, the disciples note that Jesus got away to a quiet place. And we see Jesus do this several other times in the Gospels. He took time to get away from the busyness and the sound of the world to be with God. But internal quiet is much, much harder to achieve. It's where you silence all the noise inside of you, in your own brain and in your own heart. You silence the distractions, the videos that play in your mind, the rumination over the past, your regrets, the shame, anger over the carelessness, words someone spoke to you, or a mistake you might have made. Not to mention also silencing the anxiety inside of you that bubbles up, the mapping out of all the worst case scenarios, the what ifs that play through your head. All that to say, achieving internal quiet is far more difficult than finding external quiet. It involves calming and centering your mind, and through that your heart itself on God. And it can take some serious discipline in getting used to. There's this awesome quote by Richard Rohr about coming into quiet with God to hear him speak that goes something like this. What deadens us most to God's presence within us, I think, is the inner dialogue that we are continuously engaged in with ourselves, the endless chatter of human thought. I would guess that there is nothing more crucial to true spiritual comfort than being able to, from time to time, stop the chatter, including the chatter of spoken prayer. If we choose to seek the silence of the holy place or to open ourselves to its seeking, I think there is no surer way than keeping silent. In 1 Samuel chapter 3, Samuel hears God's voice in a time when everyone was so busy and lived lives full of noise. So much noise, in fact, that hardly anyone heard God's voice. In the middle of the night, when it was quiet, he hears God calling him, and even though he doesn't recognize it to be God speaking to him at first, he eventually responds by saying, "Here I am. Speak, God, for your servant is listening." In the quiet, he gave God his full attention. I won't spoil it for you, but if you read that chapter, you'll find that there are some pretty significant things that God spoke to Samuel. When we are able to quiet ourselves and focus our inner self on God, even though that can be incredibly difficult, that is when we are able to hear God directly speak to the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions and desires, all of the above going on inside of us. And maybe that is something we need now more than ever. If you are willing, I would love to guide you through something called centering prayer. It's not a new agey thing. It's actually an ancient form of prayer that Christians have used to help guide their heart and attention in prayer back to God when their minds wandered. Now, last week, if you checked out our devotional for the week, I taught you about breath prayers, and I gave you a phrase, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. And you would repeat this phrase as you focused on your relaxed breathing. Centering prayer is actually pretty similar, but even simpler. Instead of a phrase, I am giving you one word, or one name, rather, Jesus. Whenever your mind begins to wander, or you grow anxious, or your mind follows a rabbit trail of distractions, say this word in your head, or even visualize that word in your head if you would prefer. I invite you to find a comfortable place in your house. You can pause this if you need a little bit more time. Close your eyes and listen to the soft music playing behind my voice. Now take a minute to become quiet. It's not unusual for the first few moments of this to be filled with many noisy thoughts. Don't worry or pay any attention to them. For right now, you don't have to worry about homework or your chores. Let any fears, strong emotions, or loud thoughts just be. And gently return your attention to the center of God's presence and love by repeating Jesus' name. Jesus. When your thoughts do wander, as they probably will, let them drop to the bottom of your mind like a rock to the bottom of the ocean. Don't go after them or chase them. Gently return to the presence of Christ through repeating Jesus' name. Just like Samuel, this is your way of saying, "Here I am, Lord, speak, for your servant is listening." Be with Jesus. Listen and be still. St. John once said that God's first language is silence. For the next few moments, sit before God in silence and repeat Jesus' name whenever you need to recenter your attention towards God's love and mercy whenever you need it.